Night falls. In Hell's Kitchen, a man walks down the street. His eyes were filled with sadness and hatred. "Hey, uncle," a thug said rudely, "are you looking for your missing wife on the street?" As soon as these words were spoken, the gangsters burst into laughter. The man just gave him a look that made the thug's laughter catch in his throat. This made the gangster feel very embarrassed, and he wanted to go and cause trouble. But the man didn't want to pay attention to them. He looked up at the tall buildings in Hell's Kitchen. The murderer who killed his wife and children may be in these tall buildings. Seeing that he ignored him, the gangster became angry and brought his brothers over. "As long as you are guilty, you will die." The man glanced at the thugs lying on the ground. Fortunately, these people were not in a critical condition. "I need some weapons," the man murmured. There is never a shortage of ways to obtain weapons in America. Matt's residence. The kind lawyer Matt knocked the woman down with one shot. It looked like something out of some weird plot. Fortunately, the righteous lawyer Ma did not have such dirty thoughts. Faced with the woman who was at the mercy of others and tied up, he felt helpless. The woman was so agitated that it was impossible to have a conversation, let alone ask any clues. John throwing the man to him was a test for Matt. Suddenly, the sound of a stick hitting the ground was heard, and Matt turned around abruptly. His residence was broken into. The old man, who was also blind, stood behind Matt. "Your life has made you let your guard down. Hear this familiar voice and smell that familiar smell." Matt looked at the old man. "Stick, old man." The old man had a blank expression on his face, and his nose moved. The smell in the room revealed all the secrets. This is simply a doghouse. Like Matt, he is blind. But like Matt, he seemed to be able to see everything around him. He stepped over Matt's body and saw the unconscious woman. Who is she? Women are distractions. Just like the admonitions and teachings he had received since he was a child, the old man with the stick spoke, making Matt feel helpless. But he couldn't expel the old man, because it was this man who taught him everything. The arrival of the old man with a stick was not just a simple reunion between master and disciple. He had a mission, a very important mission. Kill Black Sky. Underground laboratory. John picked out the silver thread from the reagent bottle and placed it in the palm of his hand. He blew out a breath. The silver threads drifted in the wind, gradually dispersing into a white mist that enveloped the laboratory. Fisk. Savon, who was dealt with by John, appeared on a high-rise building that was still under construction. There was wind blowing in from all sides, and Fisk in a white suit appeared in front of him. Next to Savon was Killian. Killian said to Fisk, "The famous kingpin." He smiled. This was the first time they met. Fisk looked at his phone. "Is that him?" A voice came from the other end of the phone. "We have a common goal." Fisk looked at Killian. As the boss of Hell's Kitchen, he could sense an unusual aura from Killian. Killian smiled and said, "Kill Watson Wake. You want his position and I want his company." Fisk mused, "Deal." The two of them have clear goals. Fisk wants to dominate the high-ranking underground alliance, while Killian wants to retrieve the original extremist virus and Taran Industries for his own use. This is driven by profit and greed. They came together and made a plan to kill Watson Wick. John watched from a bystander's perspective. The surrounding scene began to disappear, and he pulled out a new silver thread and blew it out. The surrounding scene changed like a whirlwind, and this time it was Killian and Savon who were there. "How could we fail?" Killian looked extremely angry, but within his anger, there was a hint of fear. "We can't let him return to New York alive. Kill him. Let the desperate soldiers do it." Savon said, "6 of our men died. Damn it, he clearly has no weapon." Killian couldn't understand how an unarmed man could escape the combined attack of his own men and the 10 rings. "The more I think about it, the scarier it gets. If we let him go back to New York," Killian pulled Savon by the collar and said word by word, "we will be the ones to die. I must not want to be controlled by him anymore." Killian pushed Savon aside. He was rarely out of control and was completely different from the last time they met at Taran Industries. He walked around the manor twice and said, "Ask the 10 rings to find Watson Wick's relatives. Doesn't he have a son? I don't believe that he wouldn't show up even if his son died." There was a cold look in Killian's eyes and Savon left. Another memory. Killian listened to Savon's report this time. "John Wick." Killian's expression was filled with amusement when he heard John appeared in New York. "I didn't expect him to come to my door on his own initiative. He showed up on his own initiative, saving us the trouble of looking for him." Killian tells Kingpin the news. This news was passed down layer by layer and finally landed in a fried chicken shop. This led to the explosion that occurred when John first arrived in New York. As the memories played out one by one, John discovered that both Killian and Fisk had a cell phone. There was nothing special about that phone, but it allowed them to communicate with each other. There is a third person inside, whom even a close confidant like Savon cannot contact. That damn guy. Killian was furious. He handed such important things to a gang. Go to Satan Mansion and get my things. Savon didn't know what it was, but when he entered Satan's mansion, the ruler here had been dead for several days. Savon couldn't find the thing and had to go back. John looked at the familiar office and immediately understood what Savon was looking for. Evolution serum. John's eyes narrowed. He hadn't expected Killian to be involved with Satan's mansion. The scene changes again. This time it was after Killian learned that Fisk had been sent in. He was shocked and angry, but also more cautious. Stop attacking John Wick. Killian calmed down and realized that it was obviously unrealistic to deal with John. He is used to staying behind the scenes and doesn't want to do anything himself. In this case, he chose to change his method. He reconnected with Fisk, and the two stayed in touch. Because of that collaboration, the two sides have formed an alliance. How are you? Nothing, he helped me with the FBI. Who is it? John narrowed his eyes. He might be the phone contact that these two had when they first met. Savon will create an opportunity for you, Killian said. We'll contact you when you get out of prison. Then there was the incident where Savon went to Hell's Kitchen and gave the extremist virus to the man in the hoodie. Meanwhile, John watched the memories. He discovered something. That Mandarin, is he related to AIM? He stared at the man sitting in the chair, surrounded by cameras and crew members standing by. The group of people led by Savon all called Mandarin the boss. Even Killian was like that. John stared at Killian, wondering if this man was someone else's subordinate. Doesn't it look similar? When the lid of the reagent bottle was opened, the surrounding images were sucked into the bottle and turned into precipitated silver threads. The color just becomes a little darker. John stuffed his things into a drawer. I don't mind causing some trouble for the people I hate. John said to Moss, contact Wenwu. Since someone is pretending to be the 10 rings, let the real 10 rings deal with those guys. John glanced at the two objects on the table. Evolution serum and extremist virus. The phone was dialed, and Wenwu's voice came, what's the matter? You don't seem to have found the actor yet, John said lazily as he sat in his chair. Would you like me to give you some hints? There was a hint of amusement in his voice. Wenwu couldn't help but look dark. Was he mocking his ineffectiveness in combating counterfeiting? Can't tolerate it. His hatred for the fake 10 rings increased even more. The shipment was supposed to stop, but a box of goods arrived today. There were people guarding the area, including many Asian people. But Matt found something wrong. He locked onto a strong man. He felt a body temperature higher than normal from that person. Just like that female driver. His master, Stickso, also has this ability. The two of them felt a little more solemn about this journey to destroy the black sky. Before taking action, Matt and the stick old man made 3 rules. No one was allowed to kill. The old man with the stick agreed readily, but in fact, there was bound to be bloodshed tonight. Because the weapon called Black Sky. It's a human. Containers are being lifted from a cargo ship. Matt and the stickman hid. For these two gifted people, night is the best time to act. Many shameful things often happen in the dark. The old man with the stick wanted to test his apprentice and asked, how much do you know about the situation? Matt pricked up his ears and listened, and heard a lot of heartbeats. Slow, steady, without a single fluctuation. There was also a heartbeat, stronger and different. As soon as he finished speaking, the old man with the stick said solemnly, it is a letter. That was a leader of the hand. Matt frowned and continued to sense, even though he was at a long distance. He could also determine more information through the sound of heartbeat, breathing, and the friction of clothes. Some special people are also here. The temperature is higher than normal. They have skins over 40 C1, no 2. If John hadn't sent him a female driver, he probably wouldn't have been able to understand it so comprehensively. If an ordinary person reached this temperature, he would be lying in the hospital seriously ill by now. But for people who are injected with the extremist virus, it will speed up their cells. MP7 submachine guns with silencers, Matt realized. They don't want to make any noise. In today's Hell's Kitchen, there is still such strength and configuration. Matt thought he had enough knowledge about the guarded land, But now it seems that the water is not deep enough for more people to reveal their tracks. The old man with the stick heard this and said, "We will be quieter." He said, "You go take care of the minions, and I'll deal with Hakone." Matt asked back, "What are you going to do?" He still doesn't know what the so-called black sky is. The old man with the stick simply said, "I have my own way." Matt still respected his master in his heart. He didn't say much and prepared to take action. "Wait." The old man with the stick held Matt's shoulder, his face stern. "There's another person." Matt listened carefully and heard the powerful beating. "Not a letter. It's another one. Another masked hero of Hell's Kitchen. Night Ghost." He was not far away. To the two people with sensitive ears, their beating hearts sounded like war drums. Even though Dax possesses extraordinary accuracy and physique, he is not someone who has received systematic training. "I don't know how to hide my heartbeat." "It's him," Matt said. "He won't attack us. We can't let him do anything bad." The old man with the stick was determined to capture Hakone and said to Matt, "Solve it as soon as possible." Matt nodded and left. After Matt left, the stick man began to assemble his own weapons. It was a bow. After assembling it, he drew an arrow and drew the bow and knocked it. But it was aimed at the night ghost that was coming. As he said, he couldn't let the night ghost ruin his actions. Matt appeared at the dock. Without relying on his eyes, he was like a ghost in the dark. Without making any noise, he dealt with a gang thug and dragged him into the road between the containers. He solved them one by one without alerting anyone. The container was lowered to the ground by a crane. Matt hides. The letter from the Asian face asked his men to open the container. A young heart beats, emitting a light melody. That's a heart only children have. Matt was stunned. He never imagined that the thing these people took so much trouble to transport at this time would be a child. "I've delivered your stuff." A white man wearing a military green short-sleeved shirt, revealing his muscular arms, walked out. He was one of the two high-energy individuals and said to Exen, "The deal is done." Exen nodded. "Say hello to him for me." His eyes were fixed on the little boy in the container. The boy was tied up with chains. He was a human being, but he was treated like a beast. The desperate soldier did not leave, but looked at the letter. Exen knew that this was a promise he had to make, so he said, "I remember agreeing to Fisk's request." "That's good." The desperate soldier nodded indifferently and moved aside. The child was brought out by the believer, and Matt was still thinking about the conversation between the two. Suddenly he heard the sound of a bow being drawn, and his heart began to beat. The arrow flew free from the bowstring and was heading towards the boy. Without caring about anything else, Matt immediately took action to block the arrow and divert it from the road. The arrow grazed the boy's ear. It also alarmed everyone involved in the transaction. Exen was shocked and angry. "Kill him!" He was about to leave with the little boy and his men. The gang members guarding the area took action and fired at Matt with submachine guns equipped with silencers. The two desperate soldiers looked at each other and attacked immediately. Matt dodged the bullets, drew his own weapons, and used his double sticks to knock away the submachine gun aimed at him. Even if he heard the old man with the stick leave, he could do nothing about it. He couldn't escape now. The car started and drove away from the dock. Matt didn't use the spikes on his stick to knock down his men with blunt blows. Just as he was about to chase after him, the high temperature stung his skin and his brows. He bent down and rolled backwards to avoid the punch. He retreated 3 steps, and the two desperate soldiers twisted their wrists, making a cracking sound. Because he didn't kill the man who had been killed earlier, he staggered to his feet. "Are you Daredevil?" The sturdy extremist soldier raised an eyebrow and said disdainfully, "You look weak." Matt knew that the old man with the stick was already chasing the little boy. He said anxiously, "Get out of the way." It was naturally impossible for the desperate soldiers to give way. A man rushed forward and attacked Matt. Matt dodged left and right, and when the opportunity arose, he hit the desperate soldier's chin with a stick, then turned around and kicked the soldier, making him retreat repeatedly. He clearly felt that the temperature of the part of the man who was hit was rapidly rising. The crooked jaw returned to normal like a spring. "I'll give you one last chance." Matt knew he couldn't hold back any longer. The spikes on his double-handed sticks popped out and turned into club heads. "Get out of the way." The desperate soldier just smiled and stepped forward again. The men who recovered picked up their submachine guns and started firing. The desperate soldier did not dodge and chased Matt relentlessly. Matt dodged the bullet and the spike hit the soldier's arm, tearing off a large piece of flesh. The soldier was not in any pain. He grinned and grabbed Matt's arms with both hands. The high temperature extended from his palms to the arm guards of his armor. Matt groaned. His arms felt like they were touching red-hot iron, causing cold sweat to break out on his forehead. A gunman behind him aimed at Matt, and when he pulled the trigger, a flying knife accurately pierced the gunman's forehead. The gunman's body staggered. His fingers pulling the trigger swept wildly towards the sky, and he fell heavily. Immediately afterwards, the gunmen were pierced by flying knives one after another. A bouncy ball hit the container and rolled into the feet of another desperate soldier who was watching the show. There was a loud explosion. The desperate soldiers were blown away. Matt took the opportunity to kick his opponent's thigh and pulled hard to free his sleeves. After landing, he sprinted up and kneed his opponent, deforming his cheek. The desperate soldiers retreated again and again, their faces covered in orange light. Matt swung his 2 sticks, aiming at the knees and breaking the man's legs. He then passed by and hit the man on the back of the neck with the sticks, forcing him to kneel on the ground. He was afraid of killing someone, so he didn't use much force at the beginning. After seeing the terrifying recovery ability, Matt increased his strength. After resolving the battle, he turned around. Night Ghost had dealt with all the gunmen and pulled the throwing knife from the neck of an unlucky guy and put it back into the sheath. "Why are you here?" Night Ghost laughed at Matt's miserable appearance. "Showing mercy to these losers is a recipe for disaster." Matt said anxiously, "Be careful of those 2 guys, they are special." He no longer cared about the Night Ghost killing people. Night Ghost said unhappily, "Don't give me orders." He turned to look and saw Matt ready for battle. The desperate soldier who was blown away stood up again, and his hands and feet recovered like magma flowing out. The soldier whose kneecap was broken also stood up, his head tilted back and a red glow appeared on his face as he recovered. It was the first time that Yigui encountered this kind of thing, and there was a hint of shock in his eyes. The 2 desperate soldiers had visible anger on their faces. They took out a metal syringe from their pocket and stabbed it into their necks. Large patches of orange light emanated from their bodies, and their temperatures rose. Court death. They attacked at the same time, killing Matt and Night Ghost. After being strengthened with drugs, the desperate soldier's recovery ability becomes even more terrifying. The wound that had just been torn in Matt's front was healed in the back. The Night Ghost did the same, holding a throwing knife in both hands and cutting open the desperate soldier's palm, which healed instantly. Every time it is opened, the temperature of that person rises. The desperate soldier's punch rubbed the Night Ghost's mask and hit the container, melting a fist-sized hole in the container. Yigui thrust his 2-handed flying knife into the opponent's neck without hesitation and pulled hard. His throwing knives were made of Taran Industries military-grade alloy, so their sharpness was naturally undeniable. Cut the collarbone like you would chop ribs. A large patch of orange-red light emerged, and Night Ghost realized that something was wrong. He decisively covered his face with his hands and shrank his whole body. The desperate soldier exploded, sending people flying. His back hit the corner of the container hard. Matt heard the noise and knocked the desperate soldier away with a stick, kicked him into the flames, and let the explosion blow him away. Matt, who had escaped the explosion, listened to his faint heartbeat and his expression changed instantly. Night Ghost. The Night Ghost was injured. By the time John heard the news, Dax had already been taken to the Taran Industries medical department. I'm glad that Matt still remembers the existence of the Second Alliance. Dr. Helen from the medical department rushed over overnight, accompanied by a dozen of her staff members. Push the person into the emergency room. Even Taran Industries' top-grade bulletproof vests couldn't completely offset the impact of a face-to-face explosion at close range. John came to the medical department and saw the emergency light on. He glanced at Matt again, who had a confused expression on his face. Matt didn't know what to tell John. His principle of not killing also got him into trouble in this battle. If I could solve it quickly, maybe the Night Ghost wouldn't be in trouble. Matt fell into deep self-blame. John asked, "What happened to you?" He didn't say anything about whether to blame or not. Those things only counted if Dex said so. Matt pulled off his mask. To be honest, their situations are quite miserable. Matt's battle suit arm guard disappeared and he had many scars on his body. Compared to the guys like the extremist soldiers who changed their genes, Matt and Dax were ultimately unable to escape the shackles of mortals. They lost physically and also because of the information gap. If Dax knew that guy would explode, he would never give him the opportunity. "Stickman and I went to destroy a weapon," Matt said in a low voice. "It was called the Black Sky, but when we arrived I found out they were transporting a boy. Those two extremist soldiers had a deal with Shin. I don't know what it was, but it's related to Fisk." Matt explained the whole story, about his master, the stick old man, and about the appearance of the desperate soldiers. Black Sky, who is personally escorted by the desperate soldiers, is allied with Killian and Fisk, and another force is also involved. John sat next to Matt, awaiting the surgery. The door to the emergency room opened, and Dr. Helen walked out wearing a mask and a serious face. She said, "The situation is very serious. His spine was broken by the impact, and I'm afraid he will be paralyzed. The patient suffered extensive burns and internal bleeding from the explosion. If it were anyone else, Dex would have been declared dead by now. But Dr. Helen has another solution. We can only use the regenerative cradle. I need to make a new spine for him and reinstall it." Dr. Helen kept her eyes on John when she said this. She understood that this experiment was in an unfinished stage and only her boss could decide whether to use it at risk. John thought for a moment and said, "Let everyone come out. I want to discuss this with him." "Him?" Dr. Helen's beautiful eyes widened. "He's still in a coma." "He'll wake up," John said without a doubt. Helen had no choice but to let her team come out first. John walked into the sterile emergency room alone. This was a converted laboratory. When John walked in, he saw Dex lying on the operating table with burns all over his body. He pulled out his wand, picked up the disinfectant next to him and disinfected it, tapping it lightly on Dax's forehead. John whispered, "Enervate." Dax opened his eyes suddenly and tried to get up, but found that he couldn't move. "Your spine is broken," John calmly pronounced the death sentence, causing Dax's eyes to instantly turn red. "However, it can be restored." John raised an eyebrow. "I'll give you a new option." When Dex saw John, he quickly calmed down. He regarded this as a sun brighter than the North Star, giving him hope. "Dex, tell me, do you want power?" John looked at him. This incident made John realize that he needed to increase the strength of his own people. Dax's mind flashed back to him being blown away by the explosion. He nodded with all his might. John removed his wand and Dax fell back into sleep. He walked out of the emergency room and said to Dr. Helen, "Use the regenerative cradle for him." "But," John stared into Dr. Helen's eyes, "I have an idea about the materials." Matt returned to his residence. "The old man with the stick is already waiting here." He walked by in silence. "You promised me not to kill anyone." Matt took off his battle suit and sorted it out. "That's right. The old man with the stick didn't seem that guilty." Matt asked, "What's that like?" "Mission accomplished." Matt was silent for a moment, then asked, "Is this what you fight? Killing children?" "The one in the container isn't some kid. I can hear his heartbeat, it's so light and fast, it's not even puberty." Matt exploded. "What happened today, and the night ghost's life and death are unknown. If you could take your mind off your fragile feelings, you would sense that child for what he really is." The old man with the stick was still the same, just like before when he would ruthlessly crush the bracelet he had given as a gift. Especially when I learned that the old man with the stick had chased and killed the boy. The angry Matt directly fought with his master. Finally, the young and strong apprentice defeated the old master and drove him out of his house. Sitting on the sofa, Matt rubbed his face vigorously. "Am I a hero?" The explosion attracted firefighters and police. They blocked the dock, where they found more than a dozen bodies. Ray was calling Dex, his brow furrowed. "Why isn't Dex answering the phone?" "Dax doesn't have to monitor Fisk today, perhaps he was delayed by other things. In the FBI, the person Ray trusts the most is Dax, and he doesn't have too many doubts about him." Under the flashing red and blue light, a soldier with a broken leg and arm climbed out of the water to the other side of the dock. His body was emitting an orange-red light and he was gradually recovering. But he looked much older. He looked back at the area blocked by the police and gradually walked away. The operation was successful. Dr. Helen took off her mask. She exhaled and said to John, "The regeneration cradle repaired his skin tissue and spine." Even so, there was a hint of worry in her eyes. "I'm not sure if his body will reject the new spine. If it does, it will die within a short period of time." She was surprised at John's audacity. They actually chose to use a special alloy to make a new spine for Dax. John shrugged. "He'll get over it." Dr. Helen, with a tired look on her face, sat down next to John and said, "I never thought that I would be performing surgery on people one day." She is a doctor of medicine and is here to study regenerative cradles. As a result, during this period she also had to work as a guest doctor. First there was the battle to save people in New York, and now there is the surgery for Dykes. Especially when Dex was doing the surgery, he was still wearing that suit. There's something I've wanted to ask for a long time. Is he? Dr. Helen asked hesitantly, a night ghost? In the Battle of New York, it's not just the Avengers who show up. And Daredevil and the Night Ghost from Hell's Kitchen. Although his name is not as famous as Iron Man and others, Dr. Helen can still recognize him. She personally likes Thor from the Avengers very much. Because the alien prince is so handsome. Well, that's a superficial reason. Asking this question made her nervous. My boss has connections with those people. Is there any secret? John admitted generously, yes, it was him. You want to ask me why I know them? John saw through Dr. Helen's thoughts and smiled. It's not news that the last billionaire was a superhero. He blinked. Now that you know, I sincerely invite you to be the first logistics officer of this League of Legends. John extended his hand and smiled. Dr. Helen, founder of the Cradle of Regeneration, the guarantee of heroes. After hearing what John said, Dr. Helen's nervousness disappeared and she smiled. You trust me so much? We haven't known each other for long. No, John shook his head, staring at the familiar face. I just think you are trustworthy. Dr. Helen was a little embarrassed. She turned her face away and said, you are much more sincere than that guy Tony Stark. Speaking of which, I have a video of that guy vomiting. Do you want to see it? The best way to bring people closer together is to bring up embarrassing things that happen to people you know. Dr. Helen watched the video of Tony holding onto a tree and vomiting nonstop, her face filled with excitement as she said, send me the video. John decisively sold Tony. Dr. Helen said grimly, this guy used to be very annoying. It is well known that a playboy deserves a beating, but a playboy billionaire who is arrogant, domineering and talented deserves a beating even more. Dr. Helen is an old friend of Tony's, but that doesn't stop her from using Tony's dark history to make fun of him. In the coastal villa, Tony, who had fallen asleep, jumped up with a start. He glanced at the little pepper next to him, and for some reason, it seemed as if a sense of malice was flowing towards him. Tony, who already had anxiety, became even more anxious. After John's thoughtful comfort, Tony's originally mild anxiety disorder became even more anxious. In addition, the recent propaganda of terror by Mandarin has made him even more obsessed with making armor. It has to be said that Tony has some extraordinary qualities that allowed him to become Iron Man. For example, his liver is really good. It's much better than a certain author who has to lie down and die after writing a few thousand words. Someone expressed his envy. I sleep for 1 or 2 hours, run until I feel like retching during the day, and still have the energy to build armor at home when I come back and research Chitauri technology. It's so heartbreaking that even a die-hard fan would feel his knees weaken and kneel down to call him Godfather. Tony didn't sleep after waking up. He went into the underground laboratory and started building armor. He is the only one who can use this kind of thing as a pastime to relieve his anxiety and spend a lot of money to make armor. Pepper doesn't know this. Tony, the master of time management, always manages to hide his anxiety disorder very well. Amidst the retaliatory production of Warframe, the year is gradually drawing to a close. Tony was in the lab, holding an injection gun and biting a towel in his mouth as he injected a microsensing device into his arm. The microsensing device has been installed. As you wish, sir, said Jarvis, the attentive butler. I have also prepared a safety guide for you to ignore. Wiping the blood off his arm with a towel, Tony raised an eyebrow and said, of course I have to ignore it. Okay, let's get started. Tony asked Dammy, a robot arm wearing a special big idiot hat, to sweep the floor clean. I passed by a wooden dummy and practiced some moves. Sir, you haven't had a rest for 72 hours. Jarvis expressed his concern. Tony walked to the center of the laboratory, where there were many types of iron armor. He called this place the delivery room, and it was also where he delivered new armor. He wants to test the latest armor. Mark 42. If Ivan knew the speed of this iteration, he would probably question his life. In just over half a year, I went from Mark 6 to Mark 42. This is a high productivity that even SOs cannot match. Compared to Ivan, who was still struggling to make Fighter 3, Tony completely showed the ugly face of the fully automated production workshop. Standing on the platform, Tony struck a beckoning gesture. Compared with Mark 6, Mark 42 not only adds a microsensing device that can be implanted in the arm, but also sets up gesture control, which can control the armor in a variety of ways. Summon, dismantle, attack, remote control. One gesture solves all problems. Tony struck a pose with no reaction, and he used his universal power over the device. Tap the microsensor device in your arm twice. There was a reaction. The Mark 42 arm part placed on the table flew towards him. He reached out to catch it and completed the installation in his left hand. Next comes the shoulder armor, and an arm completes the armor coverage. He stretched out his right hand again, summoning the right armor to cover him. After 2 successful attempts, Tony, feeling a bit complacent, was filled with confidence. "Alright, come here everyone." At a command, a full set of Mark 42 armor parts flew over. The speed was so fast that Tony was in a very bad state, and the crotch armor almost made the Stark family extinct. "Slow down a bit." After Tony slowed down, he was finally able to catch it. He landed in a cool superhero style and caught the visor. Just as he was about to admire his new armor, a piece of armor flew from behind, causing him to disintegrate and spin onto the ground. Jarvis said unkindly, "It's always been my greatest joy to admire the way you work." Well, 72 hours without rest is a bit too much for even Iron Man. He was just about to take a break, wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth, and sit on the sofa when he saw the Mandarin's terrifying propaganda. Music with a horror atmosphere, coupled with tones and painting styles full of death. The video was hacked into all channels. 39 hours ago, the US military's Ali Osalim Air Base was attacked. Yes, that's right, I did it. An old military church filled with women and children. The soldiers were out on a drill at the time. The warriors are not here. President Ellis, you have always refused to accept my education. Now, all you can do is listen obediently. Tony sat on the sofa, the light from the video shining on his face, his expression serious. He stared at the Mandarin in the video, looking at the old face. He fell into deep thought. Tony is not John, and his contemplation will not be to comment on how professional the other person's shooting technique is. But it was an attack on the Mandarin and his terror. At the end of the video, the explosion and the soldiers' shouts disappear. President Ellis, who was named, also responded to the video. "Do it your own way." Introducing a new character. Iron Patriot. Well, that's War Machine. The color was changed to American red and blue. It seriously makes people doubt whether it is a tribute to Captain America. It's a bit funny, and you can see that the New York battle had a significant impact on them. The government's intention to create a new superhero is clear. Rhodes had previously traveled abroad to fight terrorist forces, and now he is just returning to his old job and changing his name. At least when John saw the news, he thought it was good news. This means that the Secretary of State discussed the age of superheroes with the president. They're starting to think about real things instead of focusing on whether they're foreigners or not. Hattie heard what John said. She was certain that John had absolutely laughed at the name Iron Patriot. Why don't he just change his name to Captain Iron? John pushed the signed document away. A tribute to Iron Man and Captain America. There was a knock on the door and Dr. Helen walked in. She came to deliver a report. He showed no rejection, and we retested him, and his energy levels have tripled. Dax has returned to normal. With the help of the regeneration cradle, Dax, who has a new spine, feels so strong for the first time. Although he left Taran Industries, he came back every night to check to prevent any accidents. After a month of continuous examinations, Dax has become accustomed to the changes brought about by this spinal bone. John picked up the report after hearing this. The spine was made of vibranium and adamantium, which was in short supply. To this end, he also took 2 pieces of scraps from the destroyer and fused them together, and used the 3 metals to create a super spine using the regeneration cradle. That thing is so strong that even if Thor's spine was pulled out, it wouldn't be as strong as it is. With this thing supporting his body, and the runes John added to it, Dax's strength improved by leaps and bounds. It is no longer comparable to the night ghost it once was. Looking at the data item by item, there is also the body's ability to withstand blows. Dax turned a disaster into a blessing. Now, even if he couldn't tear Iron Man apart with his bare hands, he could at least withstand a few explosions and then rush over to punch Tony a few times. I think he can't wait to get revenge. John picked up another document, which was the information about Killian that had been investigated during this period. He was going to hand this man over to Dax to deal with. It's not just revenge, it's also an exercise. The weapons department has remade a new battle suit for Dax. New battle suit, upgraded materials based on the basics. In addition, new vibranium weapons were prepared for it. If Dax were to meet the extremist soldiers again, it would be a massacre. While Dax was putting on his suit, in Stark Tower, Pepper was meeting with a former colleague. "Pepper, Killian. Looking at the refreshed Killian, Pepper was stunned for a moment. In her impression, Killian still had long hair and was a little sloppy. The current Killian is completely different from before. Killian smiled at her, his eyes filled with calculation and hidden possessiveness. You look really good. Hearing Killian's words, Pepper reacted, Oh my God, you look good too. This situation gives me a feeling of looking at things with new eyes after 5 years of absence. Happy, Stark's security chief behind Pepper Potts and former Iron Man's personal bodyguard, sensed a hint of crisis for his boss. A guy who is rich, handsome, and always wants to ask his boss's woman out appears. Watching Killian with a wary eye, he felt the need to tell his boss. Fireproof, theft-proof, and cuckold-proof. Killian came here with a purpose. His former subordinate, Sevon, died on the street. This made him realize that he needed to keep a low profile. He didn't know who killed Sevon, but the soldiers who were transporting Black Sky behind him gave him a guess. Maybe it's a night demon, or maybe it's a night ghost. It must be said that he did not doubt John. During the Battle of New York, John never showed his face to the citizens, and they didn't know who was responsible for the terrible vision in the sky. The importance of information is reflected. Killian is preparing to change his approach to complete his ultimate creature. For example, borrowing the brain of a smart person to complete it. Tony didn't know that his head was in danger. He was working out and picked up a plate of apples for nutrition. Walking downstairs, he remembered to give Happy a video call. Happy's identity is very unusual. He is not only Tony's former bodyguard, but also his good friend. Although Happy is no longer a bodyguard, he still protects the woman Tony loves most as the head of security. When Tony learned that his girlfriend was admiring brains with a handsome and wealthy scientist, he immediately pulled up Killian's information to look at it. Killian over there was trying to get Stark Industries to contribute to his ultimate creature, but when Pepper heard that it was something like a super soldier, she decisively refused. As Tony's favorite woman, Pepper Potts knows clearly that what Tony least wants to see is Stark Industries continuing to sell weapons as before. Killian is very handsome and rich now, but he is not Pepper's favorite. Hearing this answer, Killian pretended to be nonchalant. Well, I have to say I'm disappointed. Killian and Pepper walked out of Stark Industries and he said, Remember my father always said that failure is the fog on the road to success. He exuded a masculine charm. Little Pepper smiled without disgust and said, It's very profound. I don't even understand what it means. I don't understand either. Maybe my father is too stupid to come. Killian said goodbye to Pepper. We will meet again, Pepper. This sentence is like a prophecy. Killian will not easily give up the opportunity to perfect the ultimate creature. He said goodbye to Little Pepper in an ambiguous way, which made Little Pepper a little dazed. The previously inconspicuous Killian now exudes charm like a male peacock. Happy witnessed the whole process and felt that his boss might be experiencing a cuckold crisis. As a close friend, Happy had a hunch that Killian was not a good person. Pulling out his phone to take a picture of Killian's license plate, Happy prepared to investigate. Driving home, Pepper found the Christmas gift Tony gave her at the door. A giant lop-eared rabbit doll. Happy is indeed a very good friend. He took action. Through investigation and tracking, they followed the car to an Oriental theater. Inside, a retired soldier, playing with his dog tags, waited anxiously. Happy appears here, pretending to be a customer buying sunglasses, and actually watching the transaction through the reflection of the mirror. Sevon was killed by John, and the one who came to trade was another desperate soldier. When the retired soldier saw him, there was a hint of panic in his eyes. Who are you? Where is Sevon? Sevon is gone, the soldier said grimly. I'll give it to you on his behalf. He held up the suitcase and said, Are you sure you can handle it? I'm sure. The retired soldier who had been treated for the desperate virus didn't want to become what he was before. After receiving a positive answer, the cold and desperate soldier said nothing, put down his things and turned to leave. Happy witnessed the whole thing. Although he didn't know what that thing was, he was sure that it was definitely not a good thing. Happy! A surprised voice came. Happy, who was concentrating, was startled. He turned around and saw Ferdinand holding a lantern in his left hand and a Santa hat in his right hand. Why are you here? Shopping? Sure. Happy saw the black guy's exaggerated body language and reached out to pull him over. What's wrong? As a former New York street stalker, Ferdinand would naturally not be idle as Christmas was approaching. He and Happy have a good relationship. Well, it's probably a love-hate relationship. Happy used his identity as the security director to pressure Ferdinand, and he used his identity as the cleaner and recycling department to mock Happy. As drivers, the two have this kind of relationship with their bosses, and they also have this kind of relationship with each other. Be quiet. Happy stared at that place intently, pushed Ferdinand's dark face away, and warned, "Don't disturb me while I'm working." The retired soldier over there had already opened the box and taken a look at the desperate virus stored inside. He couldn't wait to leave. Happy found his chance and collided with the person, knocking the box over. "Oh, sorry, let me pick it up for you." The desperate virus inside fell out, and Happy pretended to be kind enough to help clean it up. Hiding a bottle of extremis virus in his palm, Happy looked up and saw a flash of orange light on the man's face. He was stunned for a moment. Ferdinand came over and said unhappily, "You pushed me." He also saw the orange light, and bad memories came to his mind. A flash of fear flashed across his face. "Fuck. I actually encountered this kind of monster here." Ferdinand swallowed hard and feigned composure before saying, "The movie's starting over there. Let's go over there." Happy was also a smart guy. He nodded immediately and said hypocritically, "Sorry, I'm too late." He hurriedly stood up and stood shoulder to shoulder with Ferdinand, as if afraid that others didn't know how good their relationship was. Happy glanced at the hidden object in his hand. Ferdinand was sweating coldly and whispered, "Let's go quickly before that monster notices us." Seeing that he seemed to know him, Happy hurriedly asked, "Monster? You know that guy? My boss and I encountered it last time. That monster couldn't be killed even if you hit it with a car. Its hands would grow back after being cut off." Ferdinand, still frightened, asked Happy to speed up. The two of them walked with their heads down, and a person in front of them blocked their way. The man looked at Happy with a grim expression, "Leave the things here." Happy and Ferdinand looked at each other and both punched the man in the face at the same time. "Run!" Ferdinand yelled. He was grabbed by the clothes and thrown, hitting the Christmas tree, dragging the festive lights with him, causing them to crackle and spark. Happy punched the desperate soldier in the face again. He was able to become a bodyguard not just because of Tony's friendship. It's a pity that he met soldiers in desperate situations. An orange glow appeared on the cold man's face. Just one punch made him follow in Ferdinand's footsteps. The broken nose was quickly healed, and the cold man looked at the panicked crowd. The retired soldier couldn't resist the temptation and opened the bottle of desperate virus and took a deep gulp. A red light emanated from his body, and the retired soldier's face changed drastically. The desperate virus was rapidly heating his body. "No!" His face was grim, and he felt death coming. The cold man's expression changed, and he turned and ran away. Seeing this, Ferdinand got up, hesitated for a moment, ran over and dragged Happy's body towards the pillar behind. The orange light spread across the retired soldier's body, and Ferdinand yelled, "So everyone hide." As his voice fell, a huge explosion came from the man's body, quickly surrounding everyone in the theater. Those who failed to dodge were swallowed by the flames and turned into black shadows hanging on the wall. The explosion attracted great attention. Ferdinand and Happy escaped, but were injured. The two of them struggled to get up. Happy was feeling very unwell because of that punch. Ferdinand stared blankly at this hell on earth. The female driver had fainted before the explosion and had no idea the power was so great. Looking at this scene now, there were heavy casualties in the entire theater. He walked out and stood at the site of the explosion, and saw that all that was left of the retired soldier was a set of dog tags. This is something soldiers wear for identification. He picked it up, looked back at Happy and shouted, "There's something here." Happy struggled to his feet, staggered over and took the dog tags. The two of them didn't notice that the cold-blooded man behind them was standing up with white smoke coming out of his mouth. One of his hands was blown off, but it was recovering quickly. When Ferdinand turned around inadvertently, the man came behind the two of them, grabbed Ferdinand and hit him with his head, causing him to fall down. Happy's punch was blocked, and he was kicked and rolled out, hitting a pillar, and his life or death was unknown. The cold man glanced at the two of them and turned away. When the ambulance and fire department arrived, Happy was taken to the hospital. Ferdinand was bleeding from his head and was making a call on his mobile phone. "Boss, it's those same guys again." Ferdinand's eyes were blurred by blood, and he took a few breaths. "Is this considered a work-related injury?" On the other end of the phone, John calmly asked, "Where is it?" "Grand Theater." After Ferdinand finished speaking, he could no longer hold on and was pulled into the ambulance by the emergency personnel. The phone in his hand fell. John listened to the noise and the sound of the ambulance on the phone. He turned off the phone and looked at the man sitting opposite him. This scene is starting to get tiresome. Civil and military.